Hello, Wisconsin. Welcome to Hell Froze Over potentially last night. And I am excited to talk about it. And I'm going to try to talk about it objectively and thoughtfully because I was challenged to do so on Twitter last night. So I will get to that story in just a second. But good morning, Jane Matinaire, and good morning, Mr. Greg Bach. How are you
Good
both
morning.
doing?
Hello. I'm
So
doing well. The three of us are back together.
The three of us, the band is back together. We were very excited. We get to do this next week, Wednesday. And then, Greg, I think you should come on Friday as we get a little taste of maybe you can jump on the producer board on my last day and Jane can be co-host so we can see a little of what the change-up is going to feel like come September 25th.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's getting so close.
It's getting
It really
really
is.
close. I got an updated picture of her yesterday, so that was very excited. She's 6.5 pounds, and
Wow.
so she's healthy. Everything's
Nice.
looking good. She's moving
Good.
a lot.
Is she?
And yeah, so we're pretty excited. But today is going to be super fun. Like I said, we're going to start with I think some overshadowing news that maybe even over, at least in Wisconsin, feels like it overshadows McCarthy's decision to investigate President Biden, but we are going to get to that as well. And then at the top of the 11 o'clock hour, Alan Borsick is back, Marquette Fellow and longtime veteran education reporter, to talk about some of the shining examples of schools that are doing really well in Milwaukee and what they have in common. And then to round out the show, what is the worst TV decisions you can remember? And whether that's bad business decisions, whether that's shows getting canceled, like what can you think of as a really bad TV decision? So we're going to be taking your calls on that. We have some of our own thoughts on that. But to start the show, yesterday, after weeks of talk of impeachment, I spent yesterday afternoon working on a TikTok trying to get people to be excited about the fact that we need to defend justice and go to defendjustice.com and be able to call your reps and trying to talk about getting the pressure campaign going. But the fact that then at that evening, I checked Twitter and lo and behold, I about swallowed my tongue when I read Vos backs turning over drawing of election maps to nonpartisan agency bid to bypass lawsuits. And I could not believe it. And so I am a little I had to go read it, but it was at night, so I was trying to get as much information as possible. Okay.
Yes, we are working on some technical issues, Kristin Bry. Kristin is at home today, and apparently we cannot hear you on the air, which is odd because Greg and I can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
And
we are going to be working on it right now.
Yes, we are attempting to efforting a solution. So I'm assuming everything on your end is the same as it was yesterday. Yes.
Is exactly the same. And I can hear you guys perfectly. I can hear myself. I can see people. I'm not getting any comments on the live stream saying that they're having problems hearing us. So
it's on the radio itself, we cannot hear you, which the radio.
Our engineering team is on the way and should be here in about 10 minutes.
So do you guys, do you two want to talk about your thoughts on the redistricting case so people can actually hear you two?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like when I saw it, like when I saw that Robin Vos volunteered the idea and I posted this as a response to you, Kristin, on Twitter, I just thought of that scene from Star Wars where he's like, it's a trap. This isn't real. This isn't right. Like this can't be a thing that's going to happen. I'm like, he just woke up one day. He was visited by 3 ghosts. And he's had a change of heart. It's absolutely, yeah. But it looks like you're back. Someone said it's back.
Is it back?
I don't know because I can hear you.
Well, maybe they thought it was back because you're now talking and they can hear you, but unclear if they can hear me when they're listening to the radio. And so this is a we are doing some new. We're trying to revamp the studio. And so I think there were some things that were changed around, but the studio itself is not done. So that's why I thought we could just do it from home today, which is why I'm
Why you're
here. And I don't
guess
know
what?
who can hear me. So it's fun to
Just start saying everything you feel about anybody you've ever met in your
No,
entire
I
life right
know.
now.
Well, it's also because I worked really hard on trying to understand everything that was going on with the redistricting case, trying to, like I said, to be objective about it. And so now it just feels like I can I'll save it for later.
I mean,
Well,
yeah,
apparently, Sarah just checked in and she said, I can hear you on the live stream fine.
Yeah, it seems like it's probably something as far as the whichever mic is connected to the guest going out to the radio, potentially. Um, because yeah, I mean, I think we have not at least we have I can see people are watching the live stream. We haven't lost many people yet. But
it says
trying to
that it.
see
I'm sorry, go on.
no go.
It says that someone said it sounds like you're in the other room right now, and Jane and I are on the radio.
Hmm.
So, for all those texting, for all those who are wondering, we are working on it right now. We are aware of it right now. Exclamation points not necessary.
And going back to our favorite Chucklemeister, if I may, just for a moment, Robin Vos. I agreed with Greg in that it's a trick. It's a trick. And he actually started feeling heat for something that he did. So this is a last minute ditch to try and avoid this case going to the Supreme Court. And then I also have to believe that there is a delay factor as well. So we'll get into this a little bit more, but it's about delay.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely, absolutely.
Yes, I would imagine that it has to do with being delayed and the fact that the pressure campaign was working and that people were calling. And I certainly was impressed with the amount of comments I got from the video I posted yesterday of people saying, I've been emailing every day, I've been calling every day.
Great.
Supposedly it was funny. Someone, yes. And so that has been very encouraging as far as that goes. And I have to imagine that people are feeling the Republicans are feeling the pressure of this, and so they can't decide that which way to go forward. So, Price just weighed in saying he can hear us on the live stream, but not on the Civic Media app. So I'm going to let you guys keep talking because then it's
Okay.
not dead air on the app until we figure out what's going on.
Sounds good. Yeah, I mean, the developments are going to be interesting to see, and I think that I feel like there's just a card up his sleeve.
Oh, always.
Because that's just how Robin Vos cannot be like. It seems too good to be true. Absolutely too good to be true.
Oh, for sure. That all of a sudden, you know what? We were all wrong.
We were wrong for everything.
Both sides were wrong. And now we're gonna come together and do the right thing,
holding hands.
Yes, and singing "Kumbaya." It's just laughable.
I bought Judge Janet a cake. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So it will remain really interesting. And the other thing too, because he kept referring to the Iowa decision, and because they have done this in Iowa, they had a nonpartisan commission, from what I understand, draw up the maps, and the legislature can still override those maps.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
If they do not like it, the legislature can just come and be like, that was a noble attempt. Very, very good job. We're going to do it ourselves and then they'll plaster it as, well, we weren't able to come to a decision. No matter what happens.
Exactly.
We were not able to come to a decision. And that will be the noble attempt on their end. And then they can wash their hands and be like, hey, we tried.
Exactly.
We tried.
Look, see, we actually did something. We came up, we stepped up, we were willing to compromise. And that's all I'm seeing now too on some social media is, well, wait, the Democrats have been screaming about fair maps, and now the Republicans are like, well, we'll do that. And now you're saying no.
Yeah.
Come on.
And that's going to be the other thing that people will say is something like, well, the Democrats didn't want to, the Democrats didn't want to help us in this.
Right.
So we had to do it all on our own. Because we care about democracy, because I'm Robin Vos, and there's two things I love, popcorn and democracy. The order of that fluctuates depending on the day.
It changes. It changes a little bit. Sarah checking in on the live stream. The only time Voss can be trusted is when it's in his own self-interest.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that's wrong.
And that's what he spent a career doing, is making everything his own interest. Is self-interest always, whether it's property, whether it's popcorn, whether it's government, whether it's holding on to his district with, what was it, 16,000 votes? I mean, it's just absolute madness. And
so the idea that he's actually coming forward in good faith to do this is pretty funny. It really is.
Yeah, I didn't trust it from the moment. I had a moment of shock. My jaw dropped, and I was like, yeah, okay, right.
Oh, yeah, right. Sure you did. Well, I do think that it's really impressive how people responded and actually did something.
Yeah.
And called and emailed, and it should be nothing if not a little reassuring that it works.
We see this in the election cycles. We see this happening with, when we make the case and we make it known that this is dire, people show up to the polls, they call the representatives, they write letters, they do what's necessary, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we move towards something better.
That's the hope. All right, we are going to break. Come back with us on the other side. Kristin could maybe be back. And if not, Greg and I will be here. This is As Goes Wisconsin of the Civic Media Network. Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. Kristin Bry, I can see her.
I'm here.
We just can't hear.
I did show up for work.
There. Oh, there you are. We're having some technical issues. Engineering is on the way. They are doing a major overhaul of our studios, and so there's lots of pieces.
Lots of pieces
involved. Yes, and apparently there was some falling of ceiling last night.
Oh,
and,
that's exciting.
Band-aids were involved, and
Corey Harmon says she's on.
I'm on.
We did it. I sat here and I just kept my fingers crossed for technology. You know what, guys? You got this. I'll be out of here. See, have a good show.
So let's just pretend that this is the start of the show. How about that? Jane, Greg, how are you doing this morning?
We are so glad to hear you. We're so glad to hear you.
That's so wonderful. So did you hear about yesterday and Robin Vos changing his mind about nonpartisan maps?
What did Robin say?
Who's Robin Vos?
He's my favorite Chucklemeister.
Actually, a funny story about who is Robin Vos. I had a family member who does not live in Wisconsin and does not follow politics as much, but saw the video that I had made yesterday and said, my biggest takeaway was that I was surprised to find out that Robin Vos is not a woman. Just here, because I didn't put a picture of him up.
Also, Robin Vos is trending on Twitter right now, and that can't be good.
So let's start at the beginning, because I wanted to break this down because I feel like this is confusing and there is so many moving parts to both the impeachment stuff, to the Megan Wolf stuff. Like there's constantly things happening. And so with this new change, I want to be objective because honestly, when we talk about Iowa style maps, this has been a gold standard for a very long time when we talk about redistricting. And I don't want to just immediately be partisan and say, like, this is a trap. So let's try to actually break this down of what happened yesterday. What is the Iowa style system? What's in this bill? And then I have some red flags. So we're not going to get it all to in this segment, but in this hour, that's kind of what I wanted to go. So yesterday, after this has been weeks of impeachment talk, Robin Vos and the Republicans in the Assembly hold a press conference, and they announce that on Thursday, so tomorrow, the Assembly is going to consider a new redistricting plan, not maps, but a plan. And this is without a hearing, without a vote. This is fast. And the plan is going to be similar to what Iowa does when it draws their maps. So the question is, what is the Iowa system? So since 1980, they've used an independent commission to draw the maps, and it's a model for other states that have started to adopt this. However, in the nonpartisan in that system, they're still voted on, even when who draws the map is nonpartisan, but who votes on the maps to accept those maps is the legislature. So they're still approved by and voted on by the legislature. So under this plan, this is basically avoiding the lawsuits going forward, because if the lawsuits go forward, as far as I understand, the justices get to pick the maps. In the same way that what happened this last time around, there was multiple maps in the lawsuits for the maps that were decided on in 2022. Originally, if you guys remember, because where Hagedorn ended up voting, they chose Governor Evers' maps because the criteria that was put forward was least change. And according to that criteria, Governor Evers' maps was the least change. That got challenged, went to the U.S. Supreme Court, came back, ran out of time, and then Hagedorn switched and voted for the even more gerrymandered Republican-drawn maps. So in this lawsuit case, basically the justices could be the final decision on maps of what's chosen. So this is their attempt, there being Robin Vos and the Republicans, to not let the justices, the liberal majority justices, pick the maps if these lawsuits move forward.
Right.
But it still gives them the power, unless there's an amendment to the bill as it has been proposed and is being rushed through, to have them still be able to vote or amend what gets drawn by a nonpartisan independent committee. Questions?
Will there be a quiz? I mean,
but it's complicated, right? Like,
it's very complicated, very convoluted. There's so much nuance involved in this.
And so that's the thing, when you see the headline that came out, is like, all of a sudden Robin Vos is in favor and wants nonpartisan maps. And it becomes this very easy thing. Like, well, you guys have said you've wanted nonpartisan maps forever. How are you against this now? Because Tony Evers, the next step after they had this press conference, Governor Tony Evers immediately was like, it's an immediate no. It's a no for me, dog. and put out a statement basically saying he did not trust Republicans to engage in this process. And so I don't think this will move forward, but it's interesting as far as the politics that are at play. And I would say, as far as trying to look at this like objectively, I have some red flags. If you have some red flags, Greg, Jane, people who can finally hear me at home, 844-967-2789. I would love to hear if you've managed to read any of the articles or peruse Twitter or try to wrap your head around this fairly complicated scenario that we find ourselves in. Are you for it? Do you think the Iowa style scenario would be good for us? Is it is that a step forward? Is that bipartisanship? Or are there also some red flags that you're seeing that you would be like, maybe not? 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-party. So happy everyone can hear me. So happy to be here. Happy hump day. Let's keep it rolling. This is As Goes Wisconsin. We both can admit that we were wrong.
Yeah.
But you're wronger.
Yeah. No.
Oh, welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristin Bry. Jane Madnair is on the board. Greg Bach is here because it's Wednesday, and we are talking about the about face that Wisconsin Assembly Republicans have apparently had when it comes to a nonpartisan redistricting committee and letting them draw the maps in an Iowa-style change up to what they've been opposed to for years. And I'll tell this story because I know we have a call, but I tweeted this out. I think I retweeted that this is different. And there is a certain account that is a anonymous but active conservative Twitter account that it's Milwaukee Journal Sentinel Opinions (parody). And they responded to me and said, I want to see a TikTok video that's actually fair about this. I'll be watching diligently.
Meow.
And so I just responded to them. It's like, So you're saying you watch my TikToks? and he said, I am saying that. I get frustrated watching them though. And I wanted to write, I get frustrated making them. So same. But in my attempt to think about this objectively, I wanted to present these instead of immediately pooping all over this idea. I wanted to say something else. I do have 4 red flags to me that I think should be at least addressed. But before we do that, I want to see, do you have any red flags? Do you like this idea? Do you think this is an actual opportunity for a bipartisan agreement and we can move forward and sing Kumbaya? I would love to hear from you. 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-party. And we have Eric on the phone. Eric, is this the bipartisan agreement we've all been waiting for?
I'm not sure. My understanding of what they do in Iowa, what's presented to the legislature, cannot be amended. It has to be either approved or disapproved, but they can't amend it. If what Robin Vos is proposing can be amended, then it doesn't help at all, because they can just, they could just skip the whole process and amend it to whatever they wanted to amend it to. But if it couldn't be amended and it was the same thing they were doing in Iowa, I think it would be great.
So I think that, thanks for the call, Eric. And so that was my first red flag, because apparently in the bill that was proposed as written, the legislature can not only reject the maps drawn by the nonpartisan body, but it can change them however they want. And so he was willing, and I will say again, because we're trying to do this objectively, as people started to raise that argument yesterday, saying not only could you amend by the third go around from the nonpartisan body, the legislature could then amend the maps. They could also just not approve the maps, and we're just stuck with the maps that we have. And so as that objection was raised yesterday, Robin Vos retweeted Governor Evers' tweet and said, actually, I'm willing to offer an amendment to address this concern if you will sign it. Let's not play games and get this done. The Iowa process works well, as you have said for years. Again, I am trying to be objective.
Yep.
I'm answering the call and the request.
Robin Vos said, let's not play games. Come on.
I love watching this, the battle between the jaded and the hopeful. Who will win?
The fact that they're going to vote on this tomorrow is a game.
So that is my red flag number 2. Red flag number 2 to me is the very rushed nature of this. So the fact that this would not get a public hearing is a giant red flag. The fact that this bill was drafted at 3 a.m. on Tuesday morning is a giant red flag. The fact that they want to vote on it tomorrow is really rushed, because when you think, he hasn't even said he has the support of Senate Republicans yet. Like, this is just the Assembly moving forward and not something that they have even talked about with the caucus with Devin LeMahieu. And I haven't heard anything publicly from Senate Republicans yet.
But isn't it just assumed that, of course, they're going to do whatever Robin Vos wants?
I mean,
in the Senate? Oh, no.
Yeah.
The Senate, no, Devin LeMahieu and Robin Vos do not necessarily get along.
Oh.
There's a great picture of them together sitting in the legislature. Neither one look happy to be next to each other.
Yeah, there's not like lockstep coordination. I mean, think about what over the summer when they were talking about the abortion bill, because Robin Vos did the same thing where he proposed, the Assembly Republicans proposed a abortion bill with exceptions in it for both rape and incest. And the Senate Republicans were like, we're not on board with this. And so there was no coordination between those two. So ultimately, I think what isn't a red flag is that if you're going to do independent redistricting, like, it requires transparency, it requires public input. It does not require less than 48 hours for a turnaround time to get a bill pushed through. And then claim, look at what we're doing now. We're all on board now. And so that is my red flag number 2. But I want to hear your red flags, or tell me that I'm wrong. Tell me that there's nothing to worry about. 844-967-2789. Let's go to Price on the phone.
Hey there.
Go ahead.
Good morning. Can you
We
hear
can
me?
hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, just making sure. Anyway, right. So there's a couple red flags for me. Obviously, the number one is Vos proposed it. The other one is that he says to Evers, "Yeah, I'll write the amendment. You just sign it." Come on, let's be real here. And the third was just going through Twitter yesterday. There's some guy named Ron Tussler that I hadn't heard of, but he's in the assembly from Harrison. And he puts up this huge announcement that we've got this new plan and we're going to work together and everything. And his body language and his face is so just full of it. It's completely a work and just shows that you just can't trust them. And I don't trust it. And I would have to see everything written out of what they want. And that's all I got. But it's a complete work and I don't trust them at all.
Thanks so much for the call, Price. And I actually have that tweet and that video from State Representative Ron Tussler. He put out the first tweet saying, "Huge announcement. We heard your thoughts on the redistricting process in Wisconsin, and it's time for a change. Wisconsin Republicans will introduce a nonpartisan redistricting plan based off the Iowa model. This plan has been hailed as the gold standard redistricting model for Democrats and Republicans alike. Republicans, Democrats, and the governor pushed this plan last time redistricting happened in 2020. And he has a video, his corresponding video, as Price said, but then a conservative anonymous account responded to him, to Representative Tussler, saying, "You're getting rolled." And his response, State Representative Ron Tussler's response was, "Perhaps, why do you think we are all of a sudden in favor of something that we were against?"
Ooh.
It's like, oh, that were you
Ooh.
supposed to admit that publicly?
I don't think so. They keep saying real things out loud.
Yeah.
That's really gonna trip them up.
And but this is, to be fair, this is what a pressure campaign is supposed to do, right? This is what calling and saying, we do not want you to impeach Janet Protasiewicz. We do not want you to overturn this election. We want 73, the percent of people who want a nonpartisan redistricting independent committee to be drawing the maps. Like, this is what we've been saying that we wanted. We wanted accountability. We wanted representatives who were actually listening. If this is how we get there because they're scared that this is a better scenario to follow through with this, then let it go through the courts. But like, at least they're listening and at least they're responding, because we so often are talking about how the fact is, because of the gerrymander, they don't have to respond.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I thought that was, I got a response yesterday saying, newly elected State Senator Dan Knodel, who basically ran on considering impeachment since he would be the vote for a supermajority in the state Senate, who only won by less than 1%, is sending fairly snarky responses to his constituents who are saying they're concerned with the impeachment. And I was like, that is interesting, because you did not win by very much to not be listening to the people who got you, who you represent.
Yeah, you don't wield that. You don't have Robin Vos power.
Do we have any examples? I would love to hear some of his snark.
I will have to look that up. So while I'm looking that up, let's take Mark from the SAC.
Go ahead, Mark.
Hi, guys. Yeah, hi. I'll point out that the current maps certainly don't meet the standard, but as our Constitution says, the maps would still have to meet constitutional muster, regardless of if we have the Iowa model on, and be bounded by, I'm reading this directly from statute, by county, precinct, town, or ward lines, and to consist of contiguous territory and be as compact a form as practicable. They'd still have to meet that standard. And unless they do that, I mean that I wouldn't trust, as I said, I wouldn't trust Robin Vos as far as I could heave him, or even if I could heave him with one of Mel Brooks's catapults from History of the World Part 1. Where
deep cut, Mark, deep cut.
Where the king was, doing his little skeet to shoot, but it is just ridiculous that we would trust Robin Vos, because I saw today a little article that apparently he's requesting a little 3-judge panel of former justices to decide what recusal rules or not, and it just is, or impeachment rules or not, and it's just Robin Vos is scurrying for cover now, like the little rat he is, and that And Dan Canola's lucky he's not my representative, because I have some rather salty comments I'd be making to him and I also know some good ones without making any threats, like, some people on his side are actually akin to doing that. I know interesting ways of questioning a man's manhood that he probably wouldn't be too fond of.
Okay, Mark.
Mark is spicy today.
Spicy, salty Mark today.
Whoa.
Thanks for the call, Mark. So this I do have the email from I will not say who it was forwarded to me.
Okay.
But constituent, thank you for contacting Senator Knodel regarding impeaching Justice Protasewicz. Impeachment proceedings start in the Assembly, not the Senate. Therefore, Senator Knodel has no authority to initiate the process. For a different perspective, former Governor Scott Walker released an opinion the other day. You can read it here. And they linked to the Washington Times on an opinion piece because Scott Walker still has something to say, and I guess as authority over this, that people should be considering his opinion when talking about impeachment proceedings. I hope you find this information helpful. I will make sure to pass along your comments to Senator Knodel. Thank you for your advocacy, William Neville.
Wow.
William Neville.
But again, Senator Knodel, he basically ran on this, saying that he would, before either of them had been elected, talking about how he would heavily, very seriously consider impeaching her, despite the fact she hadn't been elected, and despite the fact he hadn't been elected.
Yeah. Well, they can, but see, that's where the wonderful part is. If you're a Republican, is you get to do all the things that the other side that you decide can't do. They get to say their opinions on things before they've happened, but no one else on the other side can do that. And by the way, if Robin Vos wants to put together this panel of former judges, I'm sure Michael Gableman is available. We can pay him a couple more $1 million.
I do love that part as well, because one of the quotes from the press conference yesterday from Robin Vos was, hopefully it means that we will take all of the money that has been wasted by the liberal interests suing us over maps, and instead we get to say we don't need to waste those taxpayer dollars because we can adapt the process that has been used flawless wirelessly in Iowa. I don't know what that means. Because that's who's wasting money on lawsuits, is the liberals. All right, we'll keep this going after break. 844-967-2789. What red flags do you see in this plan? This is As Goes Wisconsin. Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristin Bry, along with Jane Matnair on the board, and Greg Bach co-hosting with me today. And we are wrapping up our conversation around the 180 that Assembly Republicans in the Wisconsin legislature have apparently had a change of mind, a change of heart on who should draw the maps. And they would like a nonpartisan body to draw them instead of the justices ruling on them. And so I had some red flags that I was trying to offer, as I would love to hear the objection handling to these red flags, and still taking any of your texts and calls, 844-967-2789, as far as how you understand what this proposal could mean. But any final thoughts from you, Greg or Jane?
Well, can I just say, I am so impressed by the Republicans' dedication to doing something that they love meeting in the middle of the night. They just love meeting when no one's around and there's no press and no one can see what they're doing. And it just instills me with so much confidence and trust.
Kristin, I think what Jane said was sarcasm.
It sounded, I mean, we're not in the same room like you two are, but it did sound
it's on the desk. It's on the desk. The sarcasm's on the desk right now. It's just everywhere.
We have a text from the 262. I think that Robin Vos has earned our complete trust. No doubt he's working for totally fair maps in this time around. Scooter in Wauwatosa. And John from Menominee Falls, dear sweet John. Once again, Robin Vos is playing the role of the scorpion on the back of the frog. Give him another chance and he will stab you in the back again. He can't help it. It's just in his nature.
Dang.
Yeah. And it's, we are getting to the point where it's like, how do we ever move forward? The trust is so broken. The trust is so broken on what's been going on between the 7 justices on the court right now. The trust is so broken between Robin Vos and Governor Evers. Like, I don't know how we move forward. And I mean, the same thing goes for the tit for tat that's going on in the US Congress and
Right.
everything federally
Mhm.
right now as far as those impeachments. Like, it is exhausting to keep up with. It is exhausting to try to understand what is politics and what is truth when I think many of us just want a functioning government.
Yep.
Like, doesn't that sound nice?
Where they actually, I don't know, do things for their constituents and respond to the things that their constituents have told them repeatedly that they want.
I'm
That
even
they
down
care
for
about.
like the old Hollywood adage, one for the studio, one for myself. Hey, if you pass a bill that helps us, pass a bill that helps you. I'll lower the bar that far down at this point. But when we can't even listen to a politician give an idea before he finishes the first sentence, we're like, nah, it's not right. That's not going to happen. I mean, that is a problem.
Well, I mean, because that's the thing, what totally got overshadowed is that yesterday the Assembly also passed their tax cuts. No, I mean, none of us are talking about that today. One, because it still has to go through the Senate, and two, because Tony Evers has already said, I'm going to veto this. And it goes forward to next week when there's going to be the special session that no doubt the Republicans are just going to gavel in and gavel out like they normally do. But it is the continuous, like, revolving door of this is a non-starter. This is a non-starter. This is a non-starter because of which side proposed that plan.
And that's the other thing.
And
That's the other thing too. They're just sneaking the tax cuts in with all this window dressing, and we're like, when did, like, in 6 months, people are like, when did that happen? While they were talking about maps and impeachment.
mhm.
That's how they do it every time.
All right, well, let's go to the phones. Cindy from Appleton, thoughts on the new announcement of potential nonpartisan redistricting?
Well, talk is cheap, but I would just like to say, what scam are they going to replace this scam with?
What do you mean?
Well, meaning they're doing this, but they've got something else they're planning up their sleeves that will be just as evil. So I don't put stock in anything they say anymore. I will say I will believe it when I see it.
You mean, Cindy, you're not reassured by the fact that they hold meetings in the middle of the night at 3 o'clock in the morning and do things that are solely for the benefit of their constituents?
Do I look like I just fell off the turnip truck?
I feel like Cindy and Jane would get along if they
think-
ever went out for a drink together.
We can
Sounds good to me.
we can have a sarcasm contest, Cindy. It'll be great.
Here you go.
Thank you for calling.
Oh, thanks for calling, Cindy. So yeah, I would say the only other red flags I had with this, my red flag number 3 was it's a bill that's being advanced without any support or input from Democratic lawmakers. And finally, it's just the timing. It's like, this is very convenient that now this is when they have a change of heart. When like I said, the pressure campaign that was started last week, that people are calling, people are texting, and I am sure there is enough happening in the backdoor talks or the backroom talks, basically being like, I can't do this. Like, I can't vote to impeach her. This is wildly unpopular. There's a lot that I will go along with, but I'm not going along with this. And so they have to reverse course.
And and we were talking about this a little bit earlier. It makes me really proud of folks
Oh,
that
yeah.
they got involved and they stepped up and they emailed and they called. I want to have a big group Wisconsinite hug because we did it.
Did you hear that, folks? Jane wants to hug you.
He has not taken Robin Vos has not officially taken impeachment off of the range
Understood.
of possibility right now. But
We know
yes,
we know people will mobilize.
He's eased his rhetoric on the topic. But so this is something we will certainly keep like measuring the pulse on, because pretty important and pretty interesting to see where it goes from here. But how did I do on my objectivity?
You did great.
I thought you were great.
You presented the case. You gave your thoughts, your red flags. I really like the way you did. You laid it all out there, and you just made it I thought it was objective. Jane,
Yes.
always great to hear from you. And it's sage-like wisdom. It is.
I'll take that.
It comes from experience. All right. When we come back from the top of the hour news, Alan Borsick is going to be here. He wrote an article recently for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel on some things that we should be excited about and look to as far as shining examples of Milwaukee schools. We'll talk about what is the common thread between them. Does it just come down to money, or is there other leadership that has it something to do with what schools are doing well? And then we're going to have some fun. We're going to light it up. What are the worst TV decisions that you can remember? So we'll do that at 11:30. But stay tuned. There's going to be more in the next hour. This is As Goes Wisconsin.